Next from Springfield, we head back to the House floor for a debate over Governor Rauner's partial veto of a measure to battle heroin abuse. Governor Rauner used an amendatory veto to remove expanded Medicaid coverage for heroin medication and treatment. This runs about 15 minutes.
Let me single out Mr. Anthony, Mr. Cabello, Mr. Yingling, and Leader Durkin as people who have been very helpful in this process, along with the task force, the House committee. As you know, this bill passed the House 114 to nothing. In the governor's amendatory veto message, he applauded the entire bill except for one section. I'm very pleased that the governor saw the merit in the bill. The section he deleted relates to payment for medication and services and treatment for those on Medicaid. Let me just say three brief things about this. First, in our zeal to save money, we must not forget about human life. Illinois has been ground zero for the heroin crisis in America. We've had more heroin deaths in Illinois than any state in the nation. Second, if you only cover people who have insurance, then you're telling 80% of the population who might have drug addictions, you're out, forget it. State government doesn't care about you. But most importantly, even if we're to be concerned about cost, the governor's message, while it may have outlined the cost that would be added to a particular line item, failed to net out savings. And so, ladies and gentlemen, yes, there would be some cost to providing treatment and medication, but when you do that, these folks are not in emergency rooms. And when you do that, these folks go back to work and pay taxes. And when you do that, most of all, they're not in the prison system. Between the courthouse and the prison system, it costs us $35,000 a year for those who end up in that system, who end up being criminals, but only costs us $1,000 a month to treat them, and much of that is federally matchable. And so the costs involved are really not what the governor had stated in his message. I applaud the governor for his efforts to support a bill like this, but I think his message took out a very, very important provision of the bill. As I say, just as Illinois has been ground zero for the heroin crisis, we can be ground zero for the resolution of the crisis. This is the most comprehensive bill ever written in this country to deal with this issue. I applaud those who have helped me. I only ask that you see it to the end and that you help those who need our help, and I ask your support.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, to the bill. And Leader Lang, I appreciate the conversations we've had over the past week and hope we can continue on with that path and a number of other issues over the summer and the fall. You know, the heroin epidemic isn't constrained by a zip code. I live in the west suburbs, and I know what's happening in the city of Chicago. It's happening in the suburbs of Collier counties, and it'll be downstate Illinois next. And watching another kid left and right dying, overdosing over heroin, sickens me. It brings tears to many of our eyes, and we have to do everything within our power to stop this and reverse this before it gets even more pervasive. But Lou, you're absolutely correct. Illinois is ground zero. We have to do something. So the issue is the finances of this. Let me just say this. I am planning to vote for the override. And it is my commitment that I will work with the administration to mitigate the finances, the costs that will be borne upon the state. And we can do that when we balance the budget. But folks, this has been a very well thought out bill. A lot of people have put some great time and effort in a very bipartisan manner. So I want to thank you, Representative Lang, and also Representative Anthony, former Representative Rebeletti, who put a lot of time into this. But I believe the time is now, and I'm prepared to vote in support for the override. Thank you very much.
Chair recognizes Representative Willis.
Thank you. To the bill. Since this bill was passed just a few short months ago, I have attended 2 funerals of 2 25-year-olds that lost their life to the heroin epidemic. They were both in the state of Illinois. One was in My own hometown of Addison, very middle class, DuPage community. Another one was farther downstate. A cousin of mine got caught up in this terrible epidemic. There is not enough money that we can spend to save people. It is impossible to put a price tag on it. We need to take the forefront on this. We need to show that we know that there's a problem and that we're going to work on it. We're going to put every resource available to it to stop this epidemic so that we no longer have to attend funerals of young people that have taken the wrong path with no place else to turn. I urge everyone in this body to support the override of this. Thank you very much.
Chair recognizes Representative Sandek.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Will the gentleman yield?
Indicates that he will.
Leader Lang, with respect to the amendatory veto process, we heard some comments earlier, and I'll get to the merits of the bill as it was originally passed by this House. As you know, I was an affirmative vote. I think it's a good bill then. I think it's a good bill now. However, the governor's amendatory veto certainly was reasonable given the context of where we are financially with this state. What did you do upon hearing or receiving the governor's message with respect to the amendatory veto?
Representative, I filed an override motion immediately. I felt that the governor's amendatory veto took out an important part of the bill. As you know, the bill's like 250 pages long. He took out like half of one page. And people would say, well, he left most of your bill intact, and he left most of the pages intact. But if you take 80% of the people who are supposed to be covered out of the bill just by taking half a page out, then you obviate the goal of the bill. And when you do that, it becomes, in my opinion, not in compliance with the Constitution. But whether it was or wasn't in compliance, whether the attorney for the House of Representatives did or didn't make the correct call, I think she did. Either way, I would have filed a motion to override because we can't leave 80% of the people at the curb.
Well, I thank you for the answer, but what I was really asking you was the propriety of the ability to pay for things. Obviously, again, we want to attack this scourge. As I've shared with you, the previous speaker shared a personal experience. I've seen it in my community as well. This is a real significant problem. No one that takes 5 minutes to study it would really dispute that. How to pay for it, though, is certainly something people of goodwill can reasonably disagree with. And so the governor's amendatory veto with respect to Medicaid, whether it takes out 80%, 90%, or 5%, notwithstanding, how to pay for some of these things in light of the fact that we don't have a budget is not, frankly, an unreasonable thing given where we are today without a budget. Do you dispute that?
Representative, my response to that is that the amendatory veto was penny wise and pound foolish. We have learned, and many of you have received documents that would indicate that for every dollar we put into treatment and medication for those who might be on Medicaid who suffer heroin abuse, we save somewhere between $7 and $12 in the correction system, in the courtrooms, in emergency rooms. Additionally, we get federal match back for much of this. So during the spring session, I had been after state agencies to give us some real numbers. And they had difficulty putting those numbers together, but whenever they did, they would forget to net out the savings. And so if you only look at one line item where something might go up and forget to net out the savings from several line items where you actually have savings to the state of Illinois, you're not looking at the full picture. In fact, IATA estimates that rather than costing the state some millions of dollars, that this bill, with this provision in it, will actually save the state $58 million.
And obviously, I asked you this offline in a different context. For the documents that showed that, I've yet to see anything other than good anecdotal information coming from people certainly that have experience. They're not just spitballing, but it would be nice to have the actual numbers, because there isn't a bill here that a good proponent hasn't advanced that says, if you think about it, this really saves money. which is, again, nice commentary, but in the absence of actual documentation and sources and details, is just that. It's anecdotal. But thank you for answering my questions, Leader. To the gentleman's motion, I liked the bill then, I liked the bill now. I do wish, frankly, that we had some better numbers. Whether that's, maybe it's just not possible, and that would be fair game. I never heard anyone say that, and I spoke with the Leader 2 days ago and asked for anything else that would help support the financial query that frankly permeates almost everything we do, because we don't have a budget. And as well-meaning as this is, we still have to explain ourselves to people and say, oh, we can afford this, we can pay for it. And so I'm going to vote to override, because I think in the balance it's still the better thing to do. However, we're still not doing what we should be doing, which was actually addressing the budget of the state of Illinois. Each and every day we've been down here, and we've been down here a while, since May 31st, we have utterly failed to do what needs to be done, which is come together on a balanced budget. But thank you to the gentleman for bringing the motion, and thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Chair recognizes Representative Kaye.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Would the sponsor yield?
He indicates that he will.
Representative, I think when this bill passed the first time, I told you that this was probably one of the best pieces of legislation that I had seen. Notwithstanding the conversation we've just had, I stick by that word. I think it's a fine job. I think there was a lot of good effort put into it. And by the way, one of the things I appreciate, notwithstanding some of the comments today, is you did bring some numbers here, which I rarely get. So thank you for that. I appreciate that. This is a good bill. We need this bill. We need to get it in law. We need to get it operational, and we need to do it quickly. I'm going to vote for the override. Good bill, Lou. Thank you for your work.
Thank you, sir.
Leader Lang to close.
I appreciate all of the comments. If we could do everything in this kind of a bipartisan way and work together, we could accomplish a lot in this chamber. Please vote aye.
Representative Lang moves that House Bill 1 do pass, notwithstanding the specific recommendations for change of the governor. All those in favor vote aye. All opposed vote nay. The voting is open. Have all voted to wish? Have all voted to wish? Have all voted to wish? Mr. Clerk, please take the record. On a count of 105 voting yes, 5 voting no, 0 voting present, the motion having received a supermajority, House Bill 1 is hereby declared passed, notwithstanding the specific recommendations for change of the governor.